I used to struggle creating lots of renders with the same product, and I would often run out of ideas just after my first scene. So in this video, I'll start by diving into my look development process that lets me take an idea and turn it into 8 renders within about an hour and a half. Then I'll break down lighting metallic and reflective surfaces with a simple trick to get a sweet car render like I'm showing here. Lastly, I'll cover how to create a simple compositing setup that will make your renders pop. Let's jump in. All right, let's dive into my look development process. So look development is just a fancy way of saying it will be close to final render. So this is close to what the client would see if you were sending renders to clients. So we want finished lighting, finished textures, a finished composition. It's going to be very polished, and it's just a way of outputting a lot of images quickly. So in my case, I had an idea for a BMW M4 render. I've always had this idea in the back of my head. I just wanted to render a car. And so I didn't know what sort of scene or what sort of look I was going for yet, but I just wanted to render a car. You might have a brief in this case, and the brief will already have those requirements. Then in my case for this specific scene, I just jumped straight to collecting references. If I had a brief, I would go to mood boarding and brainstorming ideas by myself, mainly with keywords. So say the brief is for a cocktail, I'm just going to brainstorm all the words that are around that cocktail. And depending on the brand, it might be a super high luxury restaurant that does this cocktail. And so I'll brainstorm all the way around that. And maybe it's got a watermelon colored theme to the restaurant. And so you want to brainstorm ideas around that. And then you would go to collecting references around the ideas that you've brainstormed. Now, in this case, I only collected a few references. This was one of them, and this was for the environment, an idea that I had in my head when I saw this image for an environment. And you'll see this when I do my first concept. And so this here is my first concept of the car. And so lighting could be a little bit better. And obviously the scene is quite detailed, and I wasn't that happy with this render. So what I did was I jumped back to collecting references. And so I wanted to change my look up a bit, make it a little bit more polished. And so I went back to Pinterest and started looking for more references. And then I picked up some more references here, and it's the Volvo ad one, the blue one, that I was mostly looking at here, which helped me a ton in this particular scene. And that allowed me to create a second concept, and I used the elements from the first concept and then created a second concept. And you'll see the difference in here, the lighting in the second one. The scene has changed. I've removed a lot of the textures, and I've gone a lot more abstract in this scene. And then from there, once I'm happy with that final render of that BMW, then what I do from there is start to save new versions of this Blender file. And then I just start moving the camera around and changing the composition, the angle, adjusting the lighting to each of these scenes. And within about an hour and a half after I'd finished my first concept, I had another 7 shots here. And so I relit them. I'd used the compositing from the first image, and then I just went bang, bang, bang. And I had all these renders of all these different angles. And as I'm going, I get all these ideas, and I no longer need to be going back to my references. And so this is just a really good process to come up with ideas super fast. All right, let's jump into lighting some of these scenes. If you're interested in learning Blender for product visualization a lot faster and save time searching for the right tips and tricks in YouTube videos, then consider my course Master Product Visualization. It'll teach you everything you need to know from basics of box packaging to wine and whiskey renders, and all my tricks in lighting and modeling and also product animation. Look at Aaron, a packaging designer who went from zero Blender knowledge
to now presenting photorealistic packaging designs to his clients within just a few weeks, and this gave him a massive boost to his business. So if you want to save time at learning Blender and get the results quicker, then click the link below to learn more.
Right, so let's break down the first scene and how it is set up and lit. So first of all, I'll just quickly show you as I'm opening that up how I did this. So this is my first scene. It's called BMW M4 underscore SC, standing for scene. And then I've just put the 1. This is scene 1. This is version 3 of scene 1 just because I had the 2 other concepts. And so I can still access them. And then from there, once I've created this scene, I then go save as and change the name to 201. And then we go from there and we can save versions all the way up to 8, scene 8. And so then I'll move the camera around in each one of these. And if you look at the preview, these are all the different shots that we had going on. So let's jump in the back here. Let's break down the scene first. Basically, it's just here. It has some pillars in the background, like so. And we'll go over the lighting in detail in a second. Pillar in the background. Let's go into rendered view here. Have a look at what's going on. And this is just set here to a bluish color in the background. Then we have a ground. These both don't have any PBR textures, meaning there's nothing plugged into them. They're just plain textures. And I can do that because I'm in an abstract scene, or that's my render. And then we have the BMW here. So this is just a BMW model. This is from the Blender kit, the add-ons. And they have tons of resources, so you can have a plugin here. You can search for models, and we can search for BMW. We can turn on the little view icon, and it will show us all these BMWs that we can stick into our scene and render. We can adjust the colors if we would like. So that's our BMW. And then to actually light this thing, this is how I set up my blend file. So I have down here some textures. I have an image editor here, and this is just basically so that when I render, it puts the image in here rather than opening in a new window. And then I have like a live preview of my render here, and this is just the camera view here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually come in here. We're going to turn off all the lighting. Now we've got more lights than what we need. And then the BMW already has some lights to it. And you'll also notice there's a HDRI, which HDRI is just world lighting here. So the world lighting is just an airport. And I can probably turn, we're not viewing this at the moment. So let's have a look. This is what the HDRI is. Big airport. And that's plugged into a hue saturation. And I usually always do this because I don't want the color of the HDRI to affect my scene. So I just drop that down to 0.1. And then the strength is 1. And what you'll notice is when I do drop this saturation value, like if this was 1, we don't have any color really. Maybe it's just because of the angle. And the airport scene doesn't have much color, really. Maybe a little bit of this hint would be coming into the scene here, but not much. And it's quite a dark scene. So we'll just keep the saturation to 0.1 on the world lighting and the strength to 1. And the first thing you'll notice is this actually already gives us detail in our render here. And the reason why this is good is because metallic objects, they do have imperfections. And so bringing in some of those imperfections through a HDRI and those imperfect reflections makes it feel more like it's in the real world. So then I've just got a camera. It's set up to constrain target, which means that I can actually grab the camera view target and just change the view. Let's go view here, press home to recenter. I'll just turn on my shortcuts here. So origin and let's undo that, Control Z. And we'll go G. And you can see here, I can just move this. I can grab this, move this around. All right, let's turn on our lighting and we'll just go through these one by one so that I can teach you. So the first light up here is a light that is spilling through the back here. So this light is just a light with massive amount of power. The reason why the power is so high is just because of the scale of the scene is so large. So this is 60,000 power. I've changed the spread, and if you notice spread, maybe it's best to look through here. Spread is just how far will the light spread out. So this, if this was 90, you see my light would be more spread out. So the lower this number, the more like sunlight it is. And you'll notice that the beams of light start to run parallel. If I turn on my viewport overlays and we actually draw where this is going. So this is my beams of light here. As I increase this, you'll notice that the beams of light start to go on more angles. So now my light is starting to separate more, whereas these two were more parallel. And so the spread is getting larger and larger. So I had this in 45. You'll also notice that if I bump this up to the default value 180, we lose a lot of power. And that's because the power is now being distributed in every direction. And so we get this inverse law effect where the light is falling off quite quickly, and then it slows down, as you can see here. So we want to keep that spread down, and that'll force that light to put all its power forward. And so our light will go further. So that light is just set up behind those pillars facing at the car. It's quite large too. And then I'll just go through some of the car lighting. So let's go here. I might do this on the fly here. So there is a trick with lighting reflections, and the trick is just to think about the environment more than the light itself. So most other objects, we can point light straight at it and it will light it. But in the case of lighting a reflection or a reflective surface, we have to think of it more as a mirror, which means the light needs to be behind where the reflection is. So it needs to be at the opposite side that the camera is facing, at the same angle that the camera is hitting the surface. And so this is a little bit confusing, but I'll show you. Let's go Shift A. Let's actually go Shift S and move our cursor to the world origin, which is for some reason over there. Anyway, we'll move it just here. Right click, Shift right click, move it here. Go Shift A, we'll add in a light, an area light. And if you have an add-on, this is a paid add-on. I'll just open up my add-ons. It's called Light Wrangler. There's a link in the description. It is an affiliate link if you'd like to buy it. It is a super powerful lighting add-on, and I'll show you why it's so powerful in a second. But here it is. So just add it and follow the link in the description if you would like to purchase it. But basically, what I can do with this add-on, and I can hit tab, and I can start to point this light at my surface. So you see here, if I point it at my surface, it starts to create a reflection on my surface and point it at it. So what I want to do here is actually just have the light directly above. So I go Alt R, rotate this one. I'm going to scale this light up a bit, scale it on the Y. And the real power in this light is when we reduce the spread. Let's go down to 120 maybe. I could look at what I've already got. is this light. No, last light. Let's have a look at this one. This one is 180. We'll leave it 180 then. But as part of the light wrangler, we can hit HDRI. We can come down here and select a texture to go into our HDRI. And this is where we can get some really amazing lighting. So let's boost the power to something like 50. And then what I want to do is to go to top view. And I want to think about if my camera is facing this direction looking at it, and I'm looking at the reflection, it means my light has to be behind where the camera might go. So let's place it here. This is another powerful thing with the light wrangler, is when I select a light and deselect it, it should show it and then it should disappear. In this case, it hasn't disappeared. It's a bug. So what it would usually do is turn off the camera display when I select it. So we'll just place it in the back here. We can play around with the different textures that this has. You can make these textures yourself if you don't want to actually use or purchase the light wrangler. And I have got, in my last video, I've got some where I make these textures in Affinity Designer, so you can go and watch that video if you'd like. I found this texture here also works really well for cars, and I use this for my top-down shot. But for now, let's keep this one to here, the circle. Let's just straight away go Shift D, duplicate this. I'm just going to hit Tab and point it at my side here until it gets right. Now remembering this is a reflective surface, so I've got to move this to this edge here. I'm just going to move it like that. You can play with the height here, but I'm just going to place it in here. We're going to pump the brightness up to like 70, 75 there. You can reduce the spread and that'll brighten it up a bit more. And then I want some in the front here. Shift D. Let's go and rotate this. Oops. Let's rotate this on the y-axis. Negative. Point it at the front. Undo this. G, rotate. I'm just going to get it in the front there. Like so. Let's bring these up to... I'll just put a new collection. Call this one Lighting Shoot or Lighting Tutorial. And we'll call this one Original Lighting. Can never spell that word. Original Lighting. We'll pop that up in there. Grab these. I'm going off the fly, so I don't think my lighting will be the same here. So that's, I need my backlighting, my area light. Let's bring this up into the tutorial. So there we have it. And so you could also look at getting some texture into that front piece there, maybe. But I'm pretty happy with something there. You'll notice that the light is now showing over here, and we don't really want that. So what I'm going to do is come in here. I'm just going to quickly save this as my underscore toot. Oops, don't rename it. One underscore tutorial. Save. And then we want to get rid of this. So what we can do is just use our light linking. Come in here with a light selected, hit plus, and we'll give this a good name. We'll call this BMW underscore light linking. Or another way is BMW only. Just call it like that. And all you're going to do is it's on this light. You're just going to drag your BMW in. It's going to get rid of it for that background. And I'm going to do that for this light as well, this top light. And all you got to do is actually just open the box here and go BMW only, and it will bring up that same light linking group. And then I also want to do it for this light here, BMW only. That's good to go. But that environment light, that background light here, will still affect the BMW. Yeah. So then that's pretty good. So then what I would do is I would jump to compositing, and this is looking pretty confusing. So what I'm going to do is quickly render compositing, press F12, we'll do a render, and this will render out our scene down here. This will add the compositing automatically. My compositing is fairly similar in all of my scenes, but I'll just run you through it. So this is our original scene, and I'll show you what it looks like. So that there is my original render right there. Then I run it through a glare, and the glare node is what adds my streaks. So maybe let's try to rebuild it. I'll use the same settings just because I dialed them in. But let's try and rebuild this scene. So glare. Let's go ahead and place the glare. You'll want it set to streaks. Medium is fine. We want 2 streaks. That'll give us the horizontal streaks here. And there's a few things you can do here. Fade will, if you increase fade, it will allow it to fade wider. And then if you reduce the fade, obviously it's going down. The highlights, if you come in here to the threshold, this basically says anything above this value here is what will get, is what the streak will apply to. If this is too low, it'll start to apply to all the scene. So we want to just get the highlights. So you want to increase this until everything but the lights has got it. Then I'll set this to like 0.9 because I want a decent one. Now your color here, this is your color. You'll notice that if I drop this to 0, I don't get any of the colors in the lights. So this is like, then you can see here, if I reduce that, you can start to see the separation in the light paths. You can see the RGB in it. So we don't want that. We just want it about where it was, 0.25. And that's good to go. You can also change the streak angle. And I'll show you some scenes where I did this. Then all I do is duplicate this. Then I add a bit of bloom here. And if you press M, you can mute. Bloom just adds a little bit of that highlight. You can keep the threshold up quite high here, like so. Then an RGB curves, I just put a little bit of an S curve on this. Let's duplicate that. S curve will just add more contrast, and you can reduce the factor down. So let's go 0.9. Color balance, this one's a little bit more complicated. And I need to properly study this because I don't fully understand what's going on. But basically all I did here was dropped the lift. And if we pump this up, I also added a little bit of color, a little bit of blue to the lift. And if we have a look at this. So if we look at this scene, I think lift is the lights, the light colors. Gamma is usually the difference between light and dark. So the more we increase this, the more difference between light and dark there is. Let's undo that. And gain is the darks. So let's undo that. So I've got a little bit of saturation and a little bit of color in each one of these. This one's a little bit of an orange tinge. This one here is a little bit blue. and then you just reduce the factor. I had that down at 0.1. Down there. And then we've got here, this is just an ellipse. Let's go here. Press O instead. An ellipse. And it's just got 0.7 in size, 0.2. This size adjusts the size here. Then it went through a blur with 650 of blur. Then I just run it through a multiply, so it will multiply it with the first image here. So let's drag that guy, duplicate him up there. Let's see if we can get these guys like that. Then we press O, and so then you get this vignetting, and you can actually adjust your vignette like so. So I had it like 0.25. That's decent. And so that pretty much is my final render. So this is the first, this is the end. And you could work with the colors a lot more. Lift the whites and that sort of thing. Lift the darks. Whatever you would like. Play around with this. And have a bit of fun with it. Alright, I'm just going to quickly go over some extra scenes that I did. So I'm going to save this one. And I'm just going to break down some of the other interesting scenes. This one in particular I want to talk about. Open this up. Hopefully this tutorial doesn't go too long. And hopefully you actually find this helpful. So this one in particular is an interesting one because if I render this, let's go, did we just go render preview? No, let's render it. And we'll jump to compositing and we'll have a look at what's going on. I believe this is the one. All right, this is the top-down render. And so what I'll first show you is the light that we have in here. Let's see if I can zoom in. Let's jump in here. Let's go to rendered view. We'll rotate up. We'll select this top light. And I'll come into my viewport overlay visibility camera. This is what this light looks like. And this is from the light wrangler. There's just this light here. And when you place it overhead of the BMW here, you see you get this hood shape because of the shape of the light. I did this by accident, but this is why it's so cool to play around with some of these textures. So you get this really nice hood lighting in here. Then the compositing here is just the glare node. Instead of 2 streaks and a 0 degree angle, like it is by default, just change it to 1 streak. And so you see it just streaks in one direction. And then just change the angle until you get it in the direction that you want. So I just put in 90 and it points forward, and that's my render there. And so I have all the colors all set up, and all I would do is then go file, save as. So I just go Control Shift S. So say I want to make another concept, number 9. I'd hit save as. Now I've got a new scene, and this is what I did to create a new render. So the camera's up top. How about we bring the camera over here? We'll look through the camera view, and we're looking like this now. So we'll bring the camera. We can just move the camera around anywhere we like, pointing at the car. So we could go for a far shot. We come out here. Whoops. A G. Come out here. I could then lift the camera up. We'll go GGX. You could shoot a shot from way back here if you wanted. We could bring it actually in really close. And we got it in here. Bring it down. And then what I would do, say I want it to be this shot here. Well, let's do something like this. And bring the camera control forward. You want to look at composition here as well. Which that backlighting there is quite bright. Then you would just move the lights around a little bit. So I want to move this light across. We want it to be more appealing. So we'll actually move this back. We could try rotating it. It's something like this. Now that backlight, I could get rid of that light. This backlight, this one's a sun. So let's bring this down to 50. And then all you want to do is jump into compositing. Change the settings back to 2 on the glare, 0.90. And then we go back to modeling. And so you'll see how fast it is to actually just create another scene. Then we've got another scene which we can F12 and render. So it'll go through the rendering process, then composite it, and then you just save the image. So that's how I get tons of images really quickly. Alright, that's it for this tutorial. Hopefully you found something useful in my process of doing the look dev. If there's any still BMW renders that you would like to see how I lit, then drop it in the comments below. If you'd like to learn a lot more about product visualization and actually take it professional, learn all the skills you need, do it professionally, then make sure to check out my course in the link below. Alright, any video suggestions, just drop them down below and I'll take a look at them, and I'll see you in the next one.